They were gentlemen. I mean, they weren't assholes. They were nice men, but they were hardcore. They were hard-working men.
In Hollywood, there are legends, and then there are voices of pure, unfiltered honesty. Sam Elliott, with his iconic mustache and gravelly voice, is the definition of an old-school Hollywood titan who isn't afraid to speak his mind. But that brutal honesty has a price, and it's created a list of famous actors he publicly refuses to stand. From Oscar winners to the stars of Hollywood's biggest shows, Elliott has called them out one by one. So what exactly did these actors do to earn his scorn? And what happens when a living legend decides to expose the industry's most celebrated names? Stick with us as we uncover the truth behind the feuds. And if you enjoy content that isn't afraid to be honest, make sure you subscribe, because you won't want to miss this. The controversy that put Sam Elliott's brutal honesty back in the spotlight exploded with a film that was being showered with awards. The Power of the Dog. While critics and the Academy were praising it, Elliott saw something that deeply offended him. He went on a popular podcast and absolutely unloaded, calling the Oscar-nominated film a piece. He took direct aim at its star, Benedict Cumberbatch, and the other actors, comparing them to a troupe of Chippendales dancers who wear bow ties and not much else. For Elliott, who built his career on authentic cowboy roles, the portrayal felt like a mockery. He was particularly incensed by the movie's themes, questioning its allusions to homosexuality throughout the story. To him, the final insult was that this quintessentially American story was directed by a New Zealander and filmed in her home country. It was, in his eyes, a fraudulent version of the American West. But his problem wasn't just with the actors. It was with the woman calling the shots behind the camera. Sam Elliott didn't stop with the actors. He aimed his criticism squarely at the film's celebrated director, Jane Campion. During his now infamous podcast appearance, he directly questioned her credibility to helm a Western. What the F does this woman from down there, New Zealand, know about the American West? He demanded. He couldn't stand the idea that an outsider was attempting to define such a uniquely American mythology. In his view, her film wasn't an homage, but an accurate interpretation from someone who had never lived the culture. Of course, Jane Campion heard his fiery comments, and she wasn't about to stay silent. When asked about it, she fired back hard. She reminded everyone that Elliott is also an actor, not a real-life cowboy, and then delivered a brutal personal blow. She stated that he was just being a little bit of a byword and that his comments were sexist. The gloves were officially off, and the feud became personal, public, and incredibly tense. But this wasn't the first time Elliott had called out what he saw as inauthentic cowboys. Long before his clash with Campion, Sam Elliott had his eyes on another hugely popular Western franchise, Yellowstone. While millions of viewers were captivated by the Dutton family saga, Elliott was reportedly unimpressed. He viewed the show and its star Kevin Costner as the embodiment of everything wrong with the modern Western genre. Sources say he dismissed Yellowstone as nothing more than a soap opera with a cowboy hat, a perfect example of melodrama over authenticity. In his opinion, Costner's portrayal of a powerful rancher was simply too polished and too clean. It was missing the genuine dirt, the rugged grit, and the raw struggle of the life Elliott worked so hard to represent on screen. This wasn't just a casual opinion. His conviction ran deep. It's been widely reported that Elliott was approached for a role on the show, a move that would have been a dream for fans, but he turned it down. He refused to participate in a project he believed was a betrayal of the true Western spirit. His distaste for spectacle wasn't limited to Westerns. It bled into his view of other acclaimed actors. His pursuit of authenticity inevitably put him on a collision course with one of Hollywood's most famously eccentric performers, Nicolas Cage. They shared the screen in the movie Ghost Rider, and the experience was a study in contrasts. where Elliot believes in quiet restraint and building a character from the inside out, Cage is known for his explosive, unpredictable, and often chaotic energy. Elliot reportedly viewed Cage's acting method as pure disorder, a performance style that cared more about shocking the audience than finding the truth of a moment. He saw it as the ultimate display of spectacle over substance. For an old-school actor like Elliot, who finds power in stillness and subtlety, Cage's wild theatrics were the very antithesis of the craft. He didn't see it as a valid artistic choice, but as a desperate grab for the spotlight. This fundamental disagreement over what acting truly is, a quiet truth versus a loud performance, was a clear battle between two opposing Hollywood philosophies. This preference for substance over style would soon put him at odds with a new generation of actors, even on his own show. This clash between old-school dedication and new-school fame became a daily reality for Elliot on his own Netflix series, The Ranch. He starred opposite Ashton Kutcher, an actor who built his career on sitcoms and a very public, charismatic persona. While they were professional colleagues, sources from the set have spoken about a clear difference in their approach to the work. Elliot reportedly viewed Kutcher as a product of a system that prioritizes charm over depth. He saw a performer who was deeply skilled at being a celebrity, but perhaps not as invested in the foundational craft of acting that Elliot holds sacred. It was once again a case of image over substance. For a veteran like Elliot, who spent decades honing his craft in relative anonymity, it was difficult to reconcile with a generation of actors who seemed to achieve fame first and treat acting as a secondary skill. It wasn't a bitter personal feud, but a quiet, profound disappointment in the changing values of his profession. This frustration with modern Hollywood's methods extended to one of its most talked about practices. If there's one acting trend that truly embodies everything Sam Elliott dislikes about modern Hollywood, it's the headline-grabbing method acting of performers like Jared Leto. Elliot views this approach not as a sign of dedication, but as self-important theatrics. He reportedly finds Leto's style to be incredibly pretentious, seeing his infamous on-set behavior like sending disturbing gifts to castmates or staying in character to the point of absurdity as nothing more than a desperate plea for attention. For a professional like Elliot, acting is a craft built on discipline and respect for everyone on set. The work happens when the camera is rolling, not in manufactured, off-screen drama. In his view, acting is a discipline rooted in humility and truth, not spectacle. The idea of an actor intentionally making the work environment difficult for the sake of their own artistic process is a direct insult to Elliot's no-nonsense, blue-collar work ethic. It represents a self-centeredness he believes has no place in a collaborative profession. But his harshest criticisms weren't always aimed at his rivals. Sometimes they were reserved for his friends. Perhaps the most revealing and painful criticism from Sam Elliott wasn't for a rival, but for a man he genuinely admired, Jeff Bridges. Their on-screen chemistry in The Big Lebowski is iconic, a moment of cinematic magic between the stranger and the dude that felt completely natural and authentic. Elliot saw Bridges as a kindred spirit, an actor who was dedicated to the craft without chasing the glitz and glamour of stardom. But according to Elliot, that all changed after Bridges won his long-awaited Oscar. He felt that the award transformed his friend. Suddenly, Bridges became more curated, more polished, and less of the genuine, accessible person he had always known. The success from Elliot's perspective had cost his friend his soul. This was the ultimate violation of his principles. It's one thing to dislike a stranger's work, but it's a far deeper wound to watch a friend seemingly lose the very authenticity that made them brilliant. For Elliot, fame and success should never change a person's core. This quiet disappointment reveals that his true enemy isn't any single actor, but the corrupting influence of Hollywood itself. Looking at this pattern, a clear picture emerges of the one thing Sam Elliott cannot stand. When you connect the dots between all these conflicts, the true enemy becomes clear. It was never just about one actor or one movie. It wasn't about Kevin Costner's polished persona, Benedict Cumberbatch's performance, or even Jane Campion's direction. The real villain in Sam Elliott's story is in authenticity. In his mind, the Hollywood he dedicated his life to has become an industry that celebrates spectacle over substance, celebrity over craft, and imitation over truth. Whether it's a Western that feels fake, a performer who acts more like a brand than a human, or a friend who was changed by fame, it all traces back to the same cardinal sin: a lack of honesty. His brutally frank words are not just random attacks. They are the passionate defense of a code he fears is disappearing. So, the final question is for you. Is Sam Elliott an out-of-touch gatekeeper of a bygone era? Or is he a necessary voice of truth in an industry often built on illusion? Did he go too far? Or was he right to speak out? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching.